Ask the Podcast Coach for July 6, 2024.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music. It means it's Saturday morning. It's time to get your podcast questions answered live because it's time for Ask the Podcast Coach. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there, the one and only Jim Cullison from the AverageGuy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. I guess this weekend, picking the Scab has a whole new meaning.
It does have a whole new meaning. Yeah.
Don't pick the Scab. Don't pick the Scab.
Yeah, I took a tumble yesterday. I live in an older neighborhood, and make a long story short, the sidewalks are uneven, and the lesson I learned was never look at your phone while walking, because there was just this huge difference, and my right foot just stopped. And so it was like somebody almost pushed me down. And if you, this should be, I should get them as a sponsor. OtterBox, like this screen should be completely just worthless because I landed and just smacked the phone on the ground, and I was like, oh, I don't want to see that. And so we're getting Reverb City on Jim. I love that band. Ladies and gentlemen, this Thursday, Reverb City. I thought I just...
You or me?
Yep, now it's me. Sorry about that, guys. I just looked at that just to look at the volume, and it is. But you know what fixes reverb, don't you, Jim?
A little bit of coffee.
A little bit of coffee will fix anything. So that coffee pour sounds so yummy, makes you thirsty.
Fixes scabs too.
It does fix scabs. Maybe later, if we want to get sexy, I'll reveal my scabs.
We don't want to see it.
Well, besides that, and my legs can blind people. They're so wide. It's amazing. But that coffee pour is brought to you by our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co, because you got to remember, they're going to see you before they hear you. And Mark is an award-winning graphic artist. I've used him for all of my artwork. And he's not just artwork, by the way. If you need a whole website, what you're going to do is sit down with Mark and say, look, this is what my show is. And he'll probably go over and listen to it if you got something to listen. And then let him put his marketing brain to work. That's not your job. And he's going to make sure that your artwork fits the style, the vibe of your show. And again, he can easily tie this into your website if you already have one. If you need a league magnet, if you need a logo, if you need artwork, he can do it all. He's really amazing. He's an award-winning graphic artist, and even better, he's a podcaster, so you don't have to explain him like, oh, it's kind of like a radio show, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just here to tell you, sure, there's things like Fiverr, but he's going to sit down with you one-on-one, and nobody's going to do that on Fiverr. Check him out, podcastbranding.co.
And of course, big thanks to our good friend Dan Lefebvre over there, based on a true story podcast.com. This week, based on a true story this week, I said this week twice because it's this week show, The Trench, 1776, and The Pride of the Yankees are the three. Those are his this week series is when these movies take place during this time is what he does. So check it out. The Trench, 17, which was a World War I, 1776, and The Pride of the Yankees. Check it out today. It's a long holiday weekend. Maybe you've run out of podcasts. Based on a true story podcast.com. Check it out. Thanks, Dan, for your sponsorship.
Yeah. I had somebody asked how my fourth was. I don't know. I sound like a stuck up Ohioan, but when you get corn on the cob that was picked that day, so good. And I was very proud of myself because I had one ear. When I was like a teenager, I would literally eat a dozen myself. It was just like a machine. And so
it's delicious.
Yeah.
Sweet corn is delicious this time of year.
Yeah, it was a good time.
It really. Did you have a lot of fireworks in your neighborhood? We had endless fireworks. I mean, it was impressive.
Yeah, there was one. There was like either two streets over or in a baseball field about a block away. Because I was like, I'm lucky to where they have like the major Akron fireworks, literally 4 blocks from my house, so I can walk. It's awesome, and it just all of a sudden I'm like, did they move the fireworks? Because it was like major fireworks, and it wasn't until. You know, they always have those white flashes that are like, boom. And I'm like, their boom wasn't quite as boomy. And I was like, but then it actually got to me because it was like, just like, and I was like, there was a part of me that was like, you know, there are a lot of wars going on right now. And we're all like, ooh, ah. And I was like, it kind of sounds like a war zone. And I'm not like, looking for the nearest ditch to get into or whatever. So I got a little like deep and sad in a way. I was like, some people live this way all the time, but it was the other thing that's not cool. Yes, it's fun to, go buy all these fireworks. You do need to clean up the trash when you're done, because there was just confetti all over the neighborhood.
Yeah. The good news is it's cardboard, so it mostly just breaks down. If you don't, it mostly just breaks down. Ed Sullivan and I looked up the other day. We were talking about this. $2.3 billion just in the United States. Wow. $2.3 billion is spent every year on fireworks. It is incredible. And for our friends who have PTSD or those kinds of concussive injuries, right? Remember that, of course, for pets, and a lot of pets just freak out during this time. So America, but be kind to your neighbors, and it's over. Stop lighting them off. There was still a few last night coming out. So
it's like it was yesterday and not today. Yeah. I always think of good old Sergeant Fred, who was
for sure.
Infantry airborne, kind of guy, was in it. And, I just know that that's got to be horrendous for him to, in terms of PTSD and flashbacks and things like that. Hey,
it's tough on this. It's tough.
We need to say this because she's in the chat room. Except what's going on? I got the spinning beach ball here. Here we go. DR's she was in last week too. She came in and asked a question. Yeah. Happy birthday, DR. It's her birthday today. So congratulations on making it one more revolution around the sun.
Those drone, what she's talking about, those drone, the drone works, now where they put up thousands of drones at a time and they have these things. That's a cool alternative to those kinds of events. So good for them.
Yeah, because Dan says fireworks are really pretty ways of blowing up money.
2.3 billion. 2.3 billion. That astounds me. That's a lot of money.
And meanwhile, people are pooping in the streets of San Francisco. You know what I mean? It's like, we could have done. Is there a way we could turn poop into fireworks? Then we could like make this weird cottage industry. I don't know. But anyway.
Here in Nebraska, it's a big deal to everybody. All the fireworks stands are fundraising things, right? The schools. So they don't let you sell them in Bellevue where I live, unless it's going to go to some cause or something, right? And so maybe that's fireworks for the homeless. We could sell them all year long.
Yeah. Interesting.
Nobody would put up with that. Could you imagine fireworks every weekend?
No.
Or whatever?
No. Because I remember, when I had a dog, it was horrendous. When I had a cat, he was not a fan of fireworks. So, yeah.
Yeah. Gary says in chat, BYU fireworks went into the stadium audience. I saw that on YouTube or whatever. And then I've also seen those. He says in San Diego, the entire display went up in 17 seconds. I've seen that too, where the delays don't work and it just all goes at once. Oh my gosh.
I remember my neighbor had a giant box of firecrackers, and this is back in the day when people used matches. And he lit the one fire thing and then did one of these to blow it, to blow it out, just shake his hand. And the head of the match went into the box.
No.
And, for about 45 seconds, he was just like, we're like, holy cow. It was cool.
Run,
but it was,
it
was,
well, anyways.
Yeah,
hopefully everyone was safe. We're glad that your
10
injury
fingers
wasn't.
Still.
They're all here. We're glad that your injury wasn't necessarily fireworks related. You're on the mend.
Yeah.
Your knees will recover. You'll keep them clean and bandaged and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I should say this. If you're not listening to practicalprepping.info, I'll give him a shout out here. I was not prepared. Luckily I had hydrogen peroxide, but I had bandages for like itty bitty things, so I was not ready for, just basically, I had blood in my socks because my knees are just this waterfall of blood. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's not good. So that was not fun.
Hey, can we turn that into a podcasting thing real quick before I know you've got a topic, but let me ask you this question. When we think about, having a first aid kit, having a fire extinguisher, by the way, I have a fire extinguisher in my studio just to make sure, just in case something were to catch on fire.
Yeah.
What kind of gear do you think as a podcaster for those emergencies, like what's happened to you in the past when something stops working or a cable goes out or batteries? I mean, what are some things you keep around just as a backup for yourself for how do you prep to make sure you can
Yeah, I mean, one would
always
be,
podcast?
have a spare microphone like a Q2U, so that if, the Rodecaster just takes a giant dump on me, I can still plug this in and go, right? This is basically an interface and a microphone. That would be
Wow.
handy. Your email list is really handy, because if your website goes down, you've still got communication to your audience. So you can say, hey, yep, everyone, you can kind of quit emailing me. I know the website's down. They're working on it. That whole 9 yards. I'm trying to think, what else could you
Do you
do?
think having a spare computer is too much? I mean, you said spare microphone,
Yeah.
but do you think having a backup computer that you can go to, yeah, it may not be the best. It may be their last computer before you replace the one that you have. But you think keeping an extra one just in case, do you think that's an important item?
Not a bad idea. Or have, like, when the power went out, because Chris from
Yeah.
castahead.net says uninterrupted power supply. I have 3 of these in here because I've got monitors, all this stuff, but especially for your computer. But I know if the power goes out, my brother lives 20 minutes that way, and most of the time his power is on. Know where your local library is, so that if you do need
Mhm.
the internet, like, what's your backup? Know how to, although I don't know if I would do a Zoom meeting on a
You
hotspot.
could.
Yeah.
You could. I mean, I get really good. I'm 300 up or 300 down and 60 up on a hotspot. So you
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
You could. Even off your phone. I mean, some of the newer phones may be better than your computer. I mean,
Yeah.
the microphone is better for like on an iPhone, the microphone is better for sure than most laptops. If you have a PC as a laptop, your iPhone might actually have a better microphone.
Well, there was a time I hit the deer on the way home from Nashville, and I always travel with a Q2U, and I have all my production files. So the intro, the artwork, anything I need to make an episode was in Dropbox. And so once I finally got to my hotel room, I had the internet, I had a microphone, I downloaded my files, made the episode, and, not that it's going to be life and death, but, I am I'm somewhat obsessive about not missing a Monday for the school
Yeah, no,
podcasting.
right.
Yeah.
You've hit it. You've hit it. Week over week. Some good comments coming in the chat.
Yeah.
Dan Lefebvre says, had to change my whole recording computer literally 5 minutes before a scheduled interview. A
Oh,
backup
man.
computer, and I think Dave, as we think about backup computers, it's not just having one is good. What I think is great is making sure all the software and it's up to date. Because the last thing you want to do is fire that thing up and then Windows updates start happening, or right, some of those kinds of things. You might want to turn that thing on every once in a while and just make sure it's set and ready to go.
Yeah.
AI goes to college said automatic whole house generator. Okay, this is expensive. I've done this, and this is
Yeah.
expensive, but UPSs make it easier to live in the country, and that is true. If you're in an area that's susceptible to power outages, and especially in the country when the power goes out for long periods of time. Here in Bellevue, every 10 years we're out for a couple days. Once a year, it's a couple hours, right? Do I need whole house backup? Probably not. Do I have it? Yeah, I have it. I have it
Yeah.
now because I got tired of that kind of stuff. But
Well,
you want to make sure it's tested too. That's the thing. Make sure the
mhm.
laptop is tested, and then make sure if you do have a UPS or you're doing a generator, make sure you're firing that thing up on a regular basis. If it doesn't do it, some of those Generac, they start themselves and they test themselves, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But make sure you're testing it.
Ralph says, since I do a daily show, I actually have a podcast go bag with
Yeah.
backups of everything included. Yep. And Danny over at Captivate.fm and 1 Minute Podcasting Tips. Batch recording a month or 2 ahead is a easy backup. Yep. Gives you plenty of time to get caught up. The Randy Black, my Unraid server is on UPS. Yep. I worry about it, but my main device is a laptop. So a power loss won't hurt me too bad. Fingers crossed. Yeah, you might want to also. I don't have this on my current laptop, but I remember the laptop before that. It was so old that the battery lasted like 15 minutes. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're like, it's like, oh, that's right. I'm at a conference. I'm like, well, I'm not anywhere near an outlet, so I'll just fire it up. And you're like, you have 14 minutes still. You're like, wait, this thing was charged. So 100%. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah, test it from time to time. That's the thing. Sometimes we take our laptops, we plug them in, we never move them. They become the old version of a desktop, basically. And so it's a good idea every once in a while, unplug that thing, let it run on battery for a while. By the way, your UPS might be a good idea to test it. If it's lead acid, that's the old school, the old lead acid batteries. You're going to want to test those every once in a while. If you're on the new generation of batteries, you definitely want to test those from time to time. Now, they'll last a lot longer. Depends on the quality of them, but you definitely, I think once a month, I take my UPS, unplug it, let it run down to, 50%, 40%, plug it back in, let it charge back up. So just gives me a good indication of, and the newer batteries will give you like 3,000 cycles until they reach the 80% effective. Well, they're still 80%. So for a UPS, they're still pretty good. So if you're thinking about, if you haven't bought a UPS backup, you may want to look at the new generation of Jackeries. I have a Blue Eddy. You might want to check the new generations of, they call them solar generators. You don't have to have the solar stuff working on them to make them work, but a little bit better batteries.
Ralph says, I do have a question. Should I wait for a topic or kind of just ask at random? You can always ask at random. You can also go to askthepodcastcoach.com/question if you feel like jumping into the video. That works as well. But yeah, that's the way it works. And now I always want to say, if for some reason you put something in the chat room and it's been a bit and you're like, is he not going to answer my question? Put it in the chat room again. Because I do keep an eye on the chat room. And when some comes through here on eCam, I can put a little star next to it. And that then puts it into a tab called favorites so I don't lose it. Because sometimes the chat room is doing their own show. And sometimes I'll miss stuff like that.
No,
but
good.
yeah, it's and then the other thing I guess we should hit, like, it's not the end of the world if you don't come out on the day you're supposed to come out. I know some people really, like myself, I will get, like, I really want to keep my streak going, but I think I would rather have a late show that was good than an on-time show that was, all right, well, that's 20 minutes. I can't get back. So it's just the nice thing about being consistent with your schedule is you become part of the routine. Case in point, I didn't know what to do. My whole Friday night was thrown because Friday night I listened to the Podcasting 2.0 show while I'm walking around Walmart. That's how I party on Friday, baby. And there was no show. I don't know. I don't remember them announcing it. Maybe they did say it. But anyway, it was really weird because that's my routine. Listen to Podcasting 2.0, go to Walmart. So since there was no show, I didn't know what to do. I didn't go to Walmart. I was like the whole dogs and cats living together. My Friday was just a mess. So, but yeah, so think about that. And for me, I think the one that would probably come up the most, I would think a cable. I could see a cable going bad before, you know.
Good to have a few of those cables.
Yeah.
Like probably good to have if you're using a XLR cable, probably good to have a couple extra one of those around to make sure. Power for sure. They don't go bad often, but they do go bad right before your most important interview, right? That's always when you've got it all lined up. You've got 2,000 people coming out to join you live. And then, your coworker decides to invalidate the page. That's happened to me before at work, obviously, where we had this big, giant live thing going on. And I just happened to have a coworker who was cleaning up some of our sites and it's like, oh, we don't need this page anymore. Well, yeah, we do, because we had 3,000 people coming.
Oops.
We actually do need that page. It was a fiasco. We did not get it put back in time, but that's another that's another thing. When you think about being ready and prepared, sometimes Dave, and I know you've done this, you're going through you're cleaning up your computer. You got files everywhere. You're doing a bunch of stuff, or you get a new piece of software that tries to do it for you. And then you say, oh yeah, take those files away, just delete them for me. It's fine. Come to find out you actually needed some of those files that you deleted, right? So be very, very careful in your cleanup as well. I know it takes a while, but spend at least half as much time thinking about that file as you spent, deleting it as you did creating it, just to make sure Yes, you definitely indeed want to, do that. And I think the last piece I'll say on that is backups. Make sure you're checking your backups. It's not good enough to just back up. You need to check them as well. And then I think there was one question Chris asked about batteries. How long is a MacBook Pro battery good for? So it depends on the battery type. So you need to check your battery type, and then see if you can see what the cycle, what it's rated for as far as cycles. I'm going to get my nerd on for just a second. See what it's rated for cycles. That will tell you how many times they say it can go down to 0 and come back up, or down to whatever and come back up. The newer batteries, like I said, they're 3 to 4,000 generally cycles on that. That's a long time. That's like 10 years if you did that every day. Not all batteries, depends on the age of the equipment you have. They're not all rated the same. The older ones aren't rated they're not rated to go that long. The real test is just to test it. Actual real live, set a timer, unplug it, see how much. If it's 30 minutes or less, it's probably time to start replacing, some of those things.
Jim, did you ever have a train? Like,
I always wanted a big giant model. I always wanted one. I never had the discipline to actually put one of those things together.
There you go. But, coming to the stage,
nice.
From aroundthelayout.com, if I can get there we go. 3 people coming to the stage, and there's me and you, and now we're going to add Ray as guest number 2, and there he is. Ray, how are you, buddy?
Hey, Ray. I'm good, and am I on this mic? Because I just want to make sure
The joys, nope.
No, check the settings in here in Ecamm. They're down under your picture.
I don't know that. Can I adjust your stuff here?
I don't think it'll let you do.
How about this one?
No, not that one yet.
Not this one.
Ecamm takes your default in most cases.
How about this one?
Nope.
No. But your audio is good enough for the question if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's weird because Ecamm's listing it as like microphone. It doesn't tell me what it is. It just says microphone. So it's like, it's like trying to guess them. I'll screenshot it afterwards. But
no worries.
But nonetheless, the question I have for you guys, your opinion, advertising on your podcast about your own advertising. Is it a tacky practice? Is it acceptable? Because, I've got some open ad spots, but it feels kind of weird. It's like, does it, I don't know. I got a lot of thoughts on it, I guess. Does it devalue it when you're like almost begging people to advertise, or is it a good way to communicate? Or is that kind of like, back of the house, behind the scenes things that really shouldn't be seen by the listener, like handle your advertising off the air and just bring the ad to it? Or should it be kind of an open thing? Just want to get your guys' opinion on that.
I've heard it on the radio. I've heard like, hey, you could be hearing, the world could be hearing about your product right now. Advertise now. Call 376-54, ask for Jim, whatever it is. But so I've heard it on the radio, and when I hear that, it does make me go, I wonder how much it costs to advertise. Like, it piques my interest. So I wouldn't be so much like begging people. Just like, hey, this ad spot could have been about your product reaching, and then just make a little media kit. We're broadcast in, 127 countries, and all of them are avid, train people, et cetera, kind of thing. And it doesn't, 30 seconds, something you can get, cut you for. If you're interested, go out to, aroundthelayout.com/contact today. And you don't have to do it in a pukey radio voice.
Dan makes a good comment in chat. He says it wouldn't bother him from time to time. Just another ad. He goes, that I'm the target audience for. I think the key is your audience, your target audience for your ads. Like if you have a bunch of avid listeners who you think, like at Home Gadget Geeks, none of my listeners are going to want to, and I don't have vendors listening to my podcast. So I could say, hey, you want to advertise on the show? It's the wrong place to do that. But if you felt like it was a target for advertising and you feel like it'd be successful, like I think like everybody's saying, if it's tactful and not all the time and not a 5-minute commercial, right? You'd probably be safe.
Yeah. And DR said, is that considered a call to action? I consider that an ad. Now, is an ad a call to action? Well, yeah, at the end they're going, go buy my stuff at website.com. So, but yeah, I give it a shot. I think if after a while, it's like the thing I get, and rightfully so, like guilty as charged. I don't swap out my ads enough to where my audience has said, Dave, like, please, like, find another way of saying that stuff, because I've heard the same thing over and over and over. So, but
it seems to me like what you're describing would be like kind of keep it to like that 10 or 15 second slot, though, not like go on. It doesn't seem like it fits a 30, like kind of 10 to 15 seconds. If you'd like to advertise, or this, I like that idea that this slot could have been yours. Find out more at aroundthelayout.com / advertise or ad or something like that.
Yeah. Are you trying to reach people that are in the, model train, hobby? This message could have been yours.
Right.
So
bums me out that I'm not on this mic, by the way.
It's
us too, but at some point you got to give up.
DR in the chat was like, I am vindicated. I had the same problem last week. And yeah, we said it's not DR.
Let's blame it on Dave. We'll just blame it on Dave. It's his fault.
It literally does. It says microphone. It's like your guess.
I'm going to reach out to the Ecamm people and go, what's the deal with that? And how can I, is there anything I can do on my end? I don't think so. Yeah. But Danny said, and this is a good point. He said he was chatting with Tom Webster, of course, now of Sounds Profitable, and previously of that Edison Research. He says, he mentioned if listeners leave your show because of an ad, it's not really the ad that they had issues with. It was the content. Never thought of that. He's like, I used to say the same thing. I'm like, look, if one ad is going to get somebody to go, how dare you? And then they leave, like, they weren't really a super fan. Now, and that he also said people don't skip ads; they skip bad ads. And I know for me, I hate big pharma. I hate that it's everywhere. I hate that it's ruining the media. That's a scab that will pick. And there's Conan O'Brien, who keeps getting millions of dollars for things he sells. And an ad came on, it was Big Pharma. And I was this close to sending him a strongly worded like comment in YouTube, like, hey, Conan, F you and your drugs. And I was like, if I'll sit through an ad, but like it wasn't even Conan saying, you need to get amoxicillin or whatever it was. It was a pre-recorded ad. And I was like, change the show to Conan O'Brien needs some cash then, buddy. I'm like, but that again, it was a bad ad, but I was just like, really, Conan? So, but I don't think your idea is a bad one. I'm like, give it a shot, see what happens. And also, if you have a Facebook group or an email list, if you're really, because I hence you're kind of like, do I want to do this? Let your community know. Like, hey, you guys, just so you know, I have an open ad slot. If anybody's interested, shoot me a line. That because sometimes there's some like, I'll sponsor your show. So if you're worried about putting something in the episode, start there first.
Yeah, and I have people in my audience. There's a lot of cottage industry that's wrapped around model railroading, especially with 3D printing, because 3D printing you basically can print the world with it, and you can definitely print the miniature world with it. And there's smaller folks that a simple ad and every once in a while is probably more in their market than it is being able to buy thousands of dollars of ads elsewhere, and more of this being a target audience. I think it's an option. It's just reaching them, and I know some of them are listening, so I just want to put the option out there without being too intrusive, and certainly don't want to be tacky either. And that's my other fear. Is like, don't want to be completely tacky.
No, I mean, Dan brings it up. Billboard companies all the time have, your message here, your company here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, and then the beauty is, if you're using something that's dynamic like Captivate or Buzzsprout or Libsyn, if you're on the enterprise thing, you can make that dynamic. So you put it in for a couple weeks and then take it out. So I know in this case, I think you're on Spreaker, which doesn't have that, but it may make you think about leaving. So It's a
It
thought.
might.
You know, it makes me wonder in your environment where maybe you're not talking about big vendors. You know, you're not talking like, you know, a Dell or an IBM, you know, IBM's Microsoft or like big Geico, right? Some of those big ad competitors. But where it's small mom and pop, I'm thinking about a person with a 3D printer who's selling parts. My kids play Warhammer, and the Warhammer printed parts, like there's a whole industry around this, right? Where
Right.
they print these things. But I wonder in some cases if we need to make them advertising on your show easier than it is today. Like you don't want to spend a lot of time doing it because they don't have a lot of money, right? Generally. But they
Yeah.
would do something if it was easy for them, if it was easy for you, and if you could come up with some way to make it more streamlined so that you could do it in a cottage. Maybe they do it once a week for 4 weeks and then they're done. And I don't have any ideas. I'm just kind of thinking, boy, if this was a cut and dry, easier to make and create and do for both you and that person, you may in your audience for the 3D printers who are doing this as a hobby or whatever, that may be appropriate for them to advertise. Just do it in a way that's not so expensive for both you and for them to create. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I try to do my ads. I even do one off. You know, if they want to do one off, keep it
Yeah.
affordable. You know, I write write it. You know, ask them some base questions, and then formulate something that works for them. Call to action, and you know what their value proposition
Yeah.
is in the ad, and you know, knock it out real quick. And then you know if
Yeah.
they want to come back, I offer a couple options. One is if you run it one off, and then if you want to do multiple ads, I'll knock some bucks off on a multiple ad package. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just getting that information out there. I mean, I know train shows are a good place to do it, you know, and to
Yeah.
pull on the side and say, hey, by the way, we do a little advertising on the podcast, and you know, here's an opportunity for you. But you know, I'm reaching more people on a regular basis, obviously, with the podcast than I am going around to them, you know, the several train shows a year. And they're
Well-
distracted then too. It's like kind of not, you know, it's okay time, but it's not really a targeted time to get their attention.
Yeah.
One
Have the
thing-
train shows ever offered to advertise on your program? Like, could you do a package for them for a couple $100 and say, hey, for the 8 weeks leading up to this, I'll just mention, because like that'd be a perfect host read ad, so
Yeah.
to speak.
Oh.
Or have you ever done anything like that?
I've had them on the show and we do some preview stuff, so we'll actually have an episode where that. But I don't charge for that because I believe it's good content for the podcast.
Sure.
So I think it's a trade off in those aspects.
For
And
sure.
it's not direct marketed. And then there's other ways I do it, you know, and I don't want to get too much into it, but I have another thing called the operating crew where basically it's a Patreon driven thing. They pay $3 a month, become a member of it. And then once a month I give away something, and I get a manufacturer to give away something on that live show. We did one last night. They come on and it's like a free ad for them. And, you know, I'm not really getting anything other than, you know, supporting the Patreon group, which keeps that going. But they get the operating crew gets a chance to win something. Last night it was a $50 gift card, and they join the chat and he talks about a bunch of stuff. People are sitting around waiting for the wheel of names to spin, and off it goes. So I've got that working. But
Well,
yeah.
the other thing you can do with a trade show, and I just call this, in the school of podcasting world, we call this, I did a Glenn the Geek. And speaking of that, Glenn.
Don't be boring.
Yeah. Jim, you want to try, or you want to?
Don't be boring.
What he did is he went to the biggest horse trade show and said, I want a table, a vendor booth. And then they were like, so they gave him like the crappiest booth there was, but he was in the building. He just get me in the building. He said, I'll get myself there. I don't need a hotel. Just get me in the building. And then he went to all the speakers and had them come on, and that grew his network. And then he went to all the sponsors and said, tell me a little bit about your product. And they're like, wait, what are you doing? He's like, oh, it's a podcast for people that love horses. And they're like, oh, do you take sponsors on that? And some of those sponsors from that very first trade show are still sponsoring his show. And it's if you can go to Teespring or whatever it is, you can get a little banner, hang it behind you. He set up 2 microphones that were plugged into nothing, but it made him look like he was like, wow, look, it's the Horse Radio Network podcast. And it's a great way because interviewing the speakers grew his network, and then interviewing the sponsors grew his monetization efforts. So you might want to Glenn the Geek it.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And Chris Nessie wants to know where you got the custom plate.
It's as simple as just taking a lot of time and patience and measuring across here and ordering the sticker, and then just slow. Yeah. So, but I think there's a couple companies that do like the custom plate, just to hit it, SM7B custom plate. But yeah, I got sick of looking, advertising for the company I paid, $400 or whatever it was for this thing to advertise for them. So I threw that on there.
Nice. That's a way to do it. Yeah. Danny Brown says there was a thing called mic plates, but sadly they've stopped producing. So.
Oh, I gotcha. I think it's like inch and a half or something like that if you have an SM7B. And the trick is to sit there with the patience enough to get it exactly straight on the curve and get it to lay down. Plus, you got to get it square to the screw holes too. So, yeah, it took a little time.
Yeah.
But I'm a model railroader. We do those things. And
that's it.
Little tiny
X-Acto knives and glue.
That's right. That's right.
So. Anything else we can help you with?
No, that's it. I appreciate you guys having me on. It was awesome to be here.
Yeah. And everyone together, we are not judging Ray by the sound as he appears.
Yeah, please don't. Yeah, because
if you go to Around the
Ray,
Layout,
where do we find your
where
do we find your podcast?
It's at aroundthelayout.com. You can find everything there, including where to listen.
Perfect. Love
there
it.
You go.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. You bet. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Yep.
Now I want to go buy a big piece of plywood and some fake shrubs and mount it to my wall so it can come down.
Shrubbery. Yes.
And then put railroad stuff on there. Like I'm out of here. I want to go make a model train. As a kid, I so wanted that. That was the pinnacle, right? To have that on your wall in your garage, and you could bring the plywood down, and then you'd have your model railroad, right?
I removed Ray, unfortunately, behind the scenes. I should have asked him. He did a survey and got like 469 people to reply to a survey. And I was like, what is your magic sauce, man? That's holy cow. But he's got a really engaged audience over there. So Ralph has been patiently waiting for us to answer his question. Thank you, Ralph. He said, I had an issue the other day when I recorded my entire 12-minute show in Descript, and when I hit stop, it was not there. Does anyone have an idea for something I could use as a backup recorder? Yes, the Zoom PodTrak P4. It's an interface and a recorder. Or if you got a Rodecaster, and it's one of those things that's kind of a hassle because that means every now and then you got to clean out the card because you got all these recordings that you're not using. But Daniel and I use Squadcast when we do the future of podcasting, and I always record it on the Rodecaster. And there was one time where something went a little glitchy, and John is actually, that's the show that I actually farm out. I'm like, here, edit this. I don't want to do it. And he had some sort of weird thing, and he was able to fix it without it. And I'm like, oh, just let me know. I always have a backup recording of something. So that's weird though, that it just like, especially if you see the lines blinking and I know, yeah, especially if I'm assuming here you hit record. So that's kind of weird, but yeah, that's why nothing against Focusrite. They make amazing stuff, but Focusrites are great interfaces, but they don't record. If they made one that recorded, I'd be like, oh, here's the new one. But they just, so if you're going in, a Samsung Q2U into a Focusrite into your computer and you hit record and technology decides to be technology, you got no backup. So that's why I like interfaces that are also recorders, because you can just go record. I mean, right now we're recording an Ecamm, but it's on the Rodecaster as well, so that if Ecamm, for whatever reason, eats my recording, I've got a backup. Now that's not going to help you with the video, but at least you'll have your audio. And that's, I saw a couple people that were kind of getting burned out because of video, and I'm not anti-video. I'm just like going, if you're brand new, it makes sense, right? I'm going to record video and I'm going to strip out the audio. I'll do the audio thing and I'll do the video thing, but it's also more things to just freak out about. And, you obsess over your background and the fact that, oh, wait, I'm not completely, there we go. Okay, now I'm centered. It's just
all the videos, it's worthless now.
That's it.
We have to start over.
We can start over.
Start over.
It's like, that's not going to work. Hold on. All right. Ask the podcast. Like, no, we're not doing that. So, they're talking about groups in the chat room. And Chris Nessie says, I use Discord, which I just started playing. The only thing I hate about Discord, where everybody else is like, is there a dark mode? I'm like, is there a light mode in Discord? It's just everybody, it's black and purple. And I'm like, okay. Like, but I've never heard of GroupMe. That sounds almost like to build a free texting community for my listeners. I'm like, Chris Nessie. So is that groupme.com or like, because I'm playing with texting tools. That's like number 9 on the priority list is like figure out a way to send and receive texts. Yeah. Ralph says, does Mac have a built-in video recorder that I could use? Yes, it's called QuickTime. I do that every time I do a Libsyn webinar. I'm going into their Restream is what they use. And then Brian, the video guy, always goes, Dave, QuickTime running? And so I'll go in, and that way, because when I'm doing videos on Restream, like they get a copy of it, but sometimes I'm this big because my slides are on screen. He's like, no, I just want one where you're big, and he uses that to make shorts. So, and it's simple. You just go into QuickTime, and I think it's File, New Video Record, or something like that.
That's just you, though. That just gets you. That does not get
me.
Your guests.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and that's what Elsie was talking about. That speaking of Libsyn people, she said she'll record herself in QuickTime, and then she'll go in and make. She goes, because sometimes people pick clips that you're like, oh, that's not the one I would have picked. And so I don't know about you. Have you noticed that, like, much like a CVS or a Walgreens, there are about 50 million, upload a long form video to this, and we will slice and dice it into 150 different clips, of which 147 are bad, but there's tons of those. And so she's doing something like that. And that way, when it comes out, she goes, because sometimes people don't give me things to promote. And that's because it's Elsie and she's amazing. And of course, she's going to make her own promotional stuff. But that's something. Danny says, QuickTime, haha, QuickTim is just a Canadian morning coffee drive-thru. Yeah, there you go.
That's a play on Tim Horton. If you
that is. You can still send your audio to Descript and record the audio to another device like Roadcasters or things like that. Yeah, so I have Slack, which is owned by Salesforce. I guess back in August, really reduced what their free plan does. And I have a weight loss challenge, and I talk about it so much I can't even remember my own website. That's sad. But it's in my newsletter. It's typically at the bottom. But I was using a free Slack thing because we just occasionally like, attaboy, or here's a fun article or something like that. And after 30 days, all previous information is removed, including my here's how to install the app and join the weight loss thing. And I was like, oh, crap. So I was looking for a free kind of tool, and somebody said you should use Discord. And it looks fairly easy to set up. There was a guy on Fiverr that I might pay, I think it was $50 to just like, here, set this up. And I'm like, you know what? Rather than spend 2 hours going through a couple YouTube videos, I'm like, I think that's worth it for me at least. And so I am looking at Discord. It was funny because I forget how many groups I was part of Brandrew Scott and Podcastage and an Ecamm and something else. And I was like, but they're all, I just log in and it's just black and purple and yellow and orange. And I'm like, is there, like, it always looked very, I don't know, 1992-ish, like the interface. I was always like, but I mean, how much? Simple. Yeah. It's and simple. Then some of the groups are 94% emojis. And I'm like, okay, where's the actual words that I can read? But it's free. I don't quite get what they're, because you know me, like I like free. I'm not sure I want to build on free because, like I said, I was building on Slack, and then they went, oh, guess what? We're changing the rules. And you're like, hey, I'm not going to not pay you anymore. Like that doesn't work. So I'm not quite sure how. I know there's a thing called, I think it was WOP, like WHOP is a thing that you it's software that makes it so you can sell access to your Discord. But I was like, I'm just not. That's why I've always not been a fan of Discord, not because of the content. I just hate the way it looks. And I've seen people really try to kind of clean it up, and it's always like, oh, look, it's black with, bright white letters. And I'm like, there's a reason why newspapers are white on black. It makes it easier to read. And,
Surprisingly, Discord is our family chat. We had done
Mm.
Facebook for a while, but then one of my kids wanted to leave Facebook. So we were like, well, you always go to Discord. And it took us 6 months to kind of get everybody there. But now the nice thing about Discord is you can create your separate channels. So we have like a meme channel. We have like a pet channel. The cats are everything in our family.
of course.
So we have cat stuff everywhere. But we have an announcement channel. So it's kind of, Dave, I'd encourage you. I know it looks plain, but it's actually quite powerful and not that hard to set up. Just set up yourself as the administrator. Don't make anybody else administrators. You can add a few things. It takes a few minutes to figure out. It's not as hard as you think it is. It's actually a pretty easy platform to get on and stay on.
The guy was watching on YouTube was talking about all these bots you can add, and that's one of those things again where we're like, okay, just because it can do this, do I need to? Yeah. And I was like,
we haven't added a single one. I mean, we just have a regular chat with just the family, and a couple of the kids are administrators, and they kind of make it happen. But everybody can change their own settings to make it look the way they want it to for them.
Miss Eileen says, yes, you can turn off dark mode in Discord. And then John Jamingo says, it's so 2010 light mode. What are you? Come on.
Hey, speaking of that, I just got an email from StreamYard. They're going to release, wait for it, dark mode. I mean, come on, StreamYard. Why did this take so long just to get I notice Ecamm has it down below. They've got a nice switch going on down below here for us that says light and dark.
Right.
But man, I have put up with that bright white StreamYard background for so long now. And it's nice. So apparently this month. So even though it looks like StreamYard fired all of their developers, I guess there's enough of them left to enable light
mode.
and dark mode coming in StreamYard here soon to a theater near you.
Well, that's, again, this either was their last thing they ever did.
It's very possible. It's very possible it was sitting in QA when they fired all.
Somebody said, what does this button do? Oh, look, we have I was trying to find.
Listen, there's so many software development jobs open. I am sure every single one of those people that were doing software for them has now been rehired by somebody else, probably the competitor, whoever that might be. Maybe Ecamm picked up some of them. Because they're a valuable asset. I'm sure they were not unemployed very long because they're software developers at super high demand at this point.
Something I was playing with last night, and if you ever talk about pricing, there's a part where you get that can't be any good. It's not enough money. And if you go to your podcast website to talk about it, Kajabi, if you're going to do anything normal with it, is like $150. And then I went to Podia, which was $90. Then I went, I'm on now is Zenler. And I found this thing called Pensight. I do have an affiliate program. They have an affiliate program. If you go to supportthishow.com/Pensight, and that's PENSIGHT, and it doesn't do, there's no mobile app for it. And there's one other thing it didn't do, but it wasn't a big deal. And it does memberships, it does digital products, it does coaching, it does group sessions, it does email marketing, and a lot of unlimited. Like Kajabi, it's like, oh, you can only email 1,200 people, which is still a ton of people. A lot of really cool stuff. And then I went, well, how much is it? And you go to, it's $29 a month. I was like, wait, what? They take 3%. Well, that's Stripe fees, but they don't take any. I mean, it does. And it's almost like I went, this has got to be too good to be true. And the thing that was interesting about it is I went in, because now they've probably fixed it, but when I first started using Zenler, and that's almost 2 years ago, if I wanted to tie into their coaching program, their calendar didn't tie into my Google Calendar. So I would have had to had two calendars, theirs and mine, which would have made seeing if I was free or not a nightmare. And so I was playing with it last night, and it's one of those things where I was like, hey, this really makes me want to move the school because I mean, I'd be saving $40 a month. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute. Oh, that's it. They don't have an affiliate program. They have an affiliate program for them. If I had a website, there's no affiliate program so that my students could then promote me. But if you're just looking to sell courses, it was like, holy cow, $29 a month. So that's, but if you ever think of moving from one system to the other, and that's what I talk about in the latest episode, is you have to learn the page builder part. If you have an affiliate program, you have to tell all your affiliates who have been promoting you using that fun link all over their website. Yeah, you have to go find those links and change them. That always goes over really well. If people have subscribed, let's say you're using Teachable, and now you move to this, that means that the early students can't go into the system and cancel their subscription. They have to contact you because it's a different system. But I was just like, holy cow, $29. And that, again, made me go, wait a minute, Kajabi's 160 and this one's 29. I was like, but they've got some cool YouTube videos. And I was like, it looks just like a startup. They're based out of London. That's the other thing you want to do. If you ever see something that's too good to be true. And that's something that drives me nuts. When you go to About and it's like, this is the best software since sliced bread, blah, blah, blah. But there's nothing about the company. I'm like, yeah, who am I giving my money to? And so I went to LinkedIn and saw where they've been around since 2022. So it's a startup, and they're based out of London and San Francisco. But now I'm going to have to check out GroupMe.com. Everybody's talking about that in the chat room. So if you want a communities are, Jim, you know a lot about communities. What's the, do you have any best practices for communities?
Well, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
That's my number one. They can get a little unruly. The bigger they get, the harder they fall. Is so you have to be, it takes a lot of time and effort to moderate them in a way. I mean, you have to stay on top of it all the time, to make sure they're kind to each other. I mean, some of those communities can get away. Listen, don't create one and then walk away from it. Close it. If you're not going to moderate it, close it. If you're not going to have moderators, close it. It's not worth having open. Those things they turn toxic. So just be super, super careful. And it's kind of, it can be as big of a job as the podcast itself.
Yeah. So
just make sure, it depends on your audience and all those blah, 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 all those things. But you've got to be, and you have to be the most mature one in the group. You just have to decide you can't pick fights with your own listeners. You can't be condescending to them. I mean, just before you do it, just make sure you want to do it. It's one of those things. I think everybody, in the moment you open it up and endorphins flood your body and you're like, it's going to be so great. And then you get a couple hundred or maybe 1,000. I have a group of 17,000, which is way too big. It's just way too big, but it's what we got. And it's a full-time. I'm checking it all the time.
Yeah. Mark over at Practical Prepping, I mentioned, I think, because the last time I talked to him, he had 8,000 in his Facebook group, and now he's got 18,000 in his Facebook group. And he said he finally got some people in the group to help moderate, because it was an absolute full-time job. And because they had it set to where you had to approve every comment, which makes it a full-time job. And he is a no nonsense kind of, he will lovingly and compassionately kick you out for stupid stuff. Yeah. So when you start talking politics or whatever, it's like, nope, that's not what we do here. Next. Nope. See you. Bye. You're out.
Politics, advertising. We border on religion sometimes. It's just like, no, let's keep this on topic. And it's interesting. I see people who try to sneak stuff in that's kind of on topic, but not on topic, right? They just try to sneak it in with doing something else around it or whatever. I had to put, every once in a while, I have to break out the ban hammer, and I let people know people are getting banned. Right. That's not for the people being banned. They're already gone. It's so for the folks, the regulars, like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is a group that's being moderated. I think the questions and the comments are a lot different when people know there's moderation involved. And then 2, I had to put down, and say, hey guys, I'm seeing a lot of ads. Like there's just too many ads in here. And I'll allow an ad, but you can't spam the group with ads. And it was funny. right after that, there was so much ad traffic. And then I put this post out and it immediately stopped. And so sometimes now the group slows down a little bit because you don't have that constant traffic coming in and people commenting on that stuff. But as a moderator, and then there were people mad at me that I was like, oh, you're being too heavy handed. And you're like, well, sorry, that's what I got to do. It's my job, So, but you got to be willing to confront some people and say, hey, that was not appropriate for what we're doing here. And it's not always, by the way, it's not always clean cut. I think, Dave, this is one of the biggest things I've learned in moderating this stuff is you think it's always like black and white, and it is not. There are moments I look at stuff and I go, should I allow that? And I had some folks complain about some stuff that was posted, and I was like, I probably would have let it go, but they were deeply offended by it. And then you're thinking, well, what about the person who posted it? Are they going to be offended that I removed, especially the lifestyle posts? And you're like, yeah, that's not your lifestyle, but that doesn't mean you have to,
right.
You have to whatever with it. Right.
I agree with everyone's opinion as long as it's mine. Yes.
Yeah. So, just be careful what you wish for on some of these kinds of things. Well, and I know most of the folks listening here, especially the chat room, know this already. But if you're thinking about starting a group, just know what you're getting into. And I think the perfect size is between 1,000 and 2,000. There's enough people to keep it moving.
Yeah.
But there's not so many people it gets out of control. That's a good size group.
Yeah. Sell Pip Success says, are you still using Heartbeat? Yes, I love Heartbeat for the community. And that's an example of, now you can also do courses in Heartbeat. And I thought about moving the courses to Heartbeat because that'd save me $60 a month. And they have an affiliate program. And it just, again, was like, oh, it's so much work. But I love Heartbeat for the community. And then Chris says, well, wait a minute. I thought Volley was your jam. Well, it was. And then they went away and I replaced it with Heartbeat and then they came back. So it's kind of, it's put me in a weird spot because I use Volley now. I instantly signed up. I'm like, these take my money and don't go away again. And so what happens, I have some people in Heartbeat that will DM me, which is fine. It's there. And then other people, I always say, for coaching questions, it's better to contact me via Volley because I can reply in text, in audio, in video, or screen share. And I love it. And plus, I have Volley open like 24/7 unless I'm doing Ask the Podcast Coach. And so it's a little more versatile than Heartbeat for coaching. But there's some really cool stuff. I'm trying to get my audience, my problem, and I just need to because Mark Johansson is a friend of mine. He has something like gym pros, gym garage, something about gyms and stuff. And he got kicked out of his own Facebook group for 5 hours for telling, for pointing people to Facebook Marketplace. He's like, here's a bunch of things on Facebook Marketplace you might be interested in. And they're like, bam, you're gone. He's like, what? So that's why I got kicked out of my own Facebook group for saying Lunch with Dave starts in 20 minutes. And so I'm not a big fan of Facebook groups, but I have people who only want to use Facebook groups. And I have other people who will never use Facebook groups. And I need to so I always tell people when they join, I'm like, I realize that's the direct opposite of what a community is. But I really would love to have everybody on Volley for my community because it looks like there's nobody there. Like, it's like, oh, you have 37 members. And I'm like, nope, I got more than that, but I've only got 37 that are using Heartbeat. And what I love about it is if I had everybody over there, there's the ability. And I tried at one point, I'm like, hey, go in and tag what kind of show your show. Yeah, your show. You know what I mean. And and then I could say, if you want to, you can opt in and you can network with other like-minded shows. And it went over like a lead balloon. I'm almost like, did that email not go out? Because I got like 0 response on that. And when you sign up, you're supposed to say, this is what my show is. But it's got a lot of cool community networking kind of stuff. I love the way Heartbeat integrates with Zoom because we do Lunch with Dave and group coaching with that. So I'm a big Volley or a big Heartbeat fan, and I just use Volley for coaching. That comes in really handy for people across the pond because they're like, I know you do, unlimited consulting, Dave, but I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. to ask you a question. So they'll, and that's why they call it Volley. You send me something, and then I send you something. So a lot of fun stuff. Randy Cantrell has a question from the Yellow Studio. Yellow Studio's looking good, by the way. I saw his pictures on Facebook.
Looking sharp.
Substack versus email marketing provider. Substack is meant for those who want to sit back and pontificate. I am a writer. Here's my thoughts on this. So you're not supposed to fill it full of a bunch of links. I do, kinda. Well, not kinda. I do. And so if you want to do A/B split testing and all that fun marketing kind of stuff, Substack's not your thing. But if you want to do actual email marketing, I actually just fired up my old ConvertKit account just for, I think, your podcast website, because you get so many. I think you get 1,000 for free. And so I like ConvertKit. It's a little one of those things where it's got lots of bright, shiny stuff, and I'm really starting to think, do I really need all those bells and whistles, or am I just getting... But they do some things where they cross-promote other newsletters to your newsletter if you want. So Mailerlite's another good one. Mailerlite, the only kind of pain in the butt is they really want to make sure your email is delivered. So you have to do this weird domain test thing that if you're not super techie, it seems to go over everybody's head. But it's not that hard, but it is like, what are they even talking about? Because you have to add some sort of record to your domain registrar. So, but it's like $10. So I love Mailerlite for that, and they have a lot of great features. And then Danny in the chat room, I know, mentioned Aweber. That's a solid choice. There's always MailChimp. All those, what you want to look at is how much does this cost when it's not free? Because they're all like, you can start for free. And I'm like, yeah, I can start for free, but what is it when it's not? And I think MailChimp is the one I was like, eek. Like, it jumps big time. So, and there's a ton of them. Constant Contact. There's something like Beehive or something, but my ones I usually recommend are Mailerlite and ConvertKit. So, but and then Ralph has a question here. And then we got to thank our supporters. Does anyone have any inside information on the Camtasia 2.5 dashboard release? I see it's coming out on the 16th. I know I upgraded, and I know I have a see what's new video that's in my I should watch this, and that's something. Jim, do you do this where you buy stuff and go, okay, I'll look at this later, or I will use this later, or I actually have a folder called, I think it's Stuff to Learn. And it's all these courses that I have, it was one-time deal, lifetime access kind of thing. And I love Matthew Dix. He has a new book out about storytelling. I ordered his storytelling course when it first came out because it was an early bird special, one time only. I think I logged in once and went, yep, the login works, and that's the last time I saw it. So I'm taking a vacation in a couple weeks, and I'm doing a bunch of stuff to my house. But the other thing I'm doing is I might actually watch some of these courses. It's hard. I don't know about you. As a guy who makes courses, I'm always like, I hope I'm not doing this to my students, but I have a hard time staying awake, like literally staying awake when I watch courses, because it's just a slide and somebody talking, and it's hard to make courses fun and entertaining. It's tough. So, but do you have a lot of those?
I can't just sit and listen to them. I need to convert them. Like I shouldn't say this. This is what I should do. I don't actually do this, but I need to convert them to my phone as audio only and listen to them in the car. That is the best time for me to sit and listen and learn. Even if there's visualizations, like I need to, even some company stuff that we do, that we make, that we don't make available as a podcast. I've listened to it on our secure SharePoint servers in my car, just so, because I can't, otherwise I get too distracted. Like I get distracted on this show and I'm doing it, you know? So, yeah.
Well, it turns out that was not the question Ralph was asking. He was asking not about Camtasia, but Captivate. Because I wondered when I saw 2.5, I was like, wait a minute. Here's the thing. If you go into Captivate, and I have said, look, I know I work for Libsyn, but if somebody said who has the best feature set, in the $20 price range, that's a no-brainer. And I was playing with Amy, which is their dynamic tool. And oh my God, I started playing with tags. And like, if I wanted to, like, I have a segment on the School of Podcasting, right? Question of the month. I could tag that QOTM or whatever you would like to make, and then go in and say, show me where are all my question of the month ads, because they're from, July. And then in August, upload my August one and go, okay, all of those, check. Use this one, poof. And I was like, oh, that would be so much easier than what I'm doing now. And so when I looked into, I stumbled into either their here's our latest release kind of thing or an FAQ. They got some cool stuff coming, because like right now I can't see how many downloads my ad got, but I saw somewhere that I just was like, ooh. And they basically saying, here are things that are not here now, and they didn't give a date, but where they're going, I was like, oh, that's going to be cool. Oh, ooh, that's going to be cool. So I don't even know. I don't know if Danny can say when that's going to be coming out, but whatever is coming out, it was cool. But yeah, DR says, well, this is going to be so confusing. Camtasia and Snagit are owned by the same people, and they have both updated versions. Yeah, so the one's Camtasia, that's a video editor. One is Captivate, that's the media host that has a lot of... Oh, speaking of who we're talking about selling, Array. If you're on Camtasia, see, I just did it. Let's try that again. Take two. If you're on Captivate, because Camtasia is a video editing tool, so most of the time I'm saying Captivate, they have a build your own kind of Patreon thing, and you can use that to sell sponsorships. So you can say, hey, here's, it's X amount a month, you get this position, and then you can use that to dynamically insert your ad. So there we go. July 16th preview, and lots of stuff on that FAQ very soon. Yeah. Yeah, and Rich Graham is saying, yeah, the tag thing's been there. Dave, where you been? And I'm like, yeah, I like Amy. It's really cool. The only people without, again, spending hundreds of dollars for media hosts, because Libsyn has, their dynamic tool has like limits. Like I can say, only show this ad for 500 impressions and only show it in this city and state. It's, but that's an enterprise solution. But for Joe, entrepreneur guy that wants to just promote his own stuff, Captivate has a cool one, and Red Circle, of all people, have one where you make a folder and you put a bunch of ads in it, and you go, okay, when at this time, grab 2 random ads from that and stick them in here. And it was like, now again, there's no kind of stats on that, but I was like, that's kind of cool. And that's part of their free program. Now, the Red Circle free plan, because it used to be you went to their website used to be weird. They had all these red flowers. Like it looked like a florist shop. I'm like, what are we selling here, kids? And it used to be free media hosting, which I have said for 19 years, not a great business model. And now if you go to their website, they've got all their paid stuff. And at the very bottom, it's like, oh, by the way, we do have a free program. So I always, for the person that's like, no, it's got to be free, man. I don't have enough money. I'm like, okay, well, don't use Spotify. Use the Red Circle, because that's a better free choice. So DR says, Patreon type of platform to get away from the ads. My favorite, and I need to answer this question because it's been so long since I've looked, I'm probably out of date. And I know Patreon is coming out with the ability to gift subscriptions. So if you know somebody who's really into Star Wars and there's a Star Wars show that they listen to, you could like go over and say, hey, I'd like to buy them a premium membership to this. So I like Supercast, and if I remember right, they take less money than Patreon, and Patreon, you get the joy, and I mean, joy of teaching your audience how to, don't click on the RSS feed, copy it, and then paste it into your app. That can be a bit of a train wreck, where Supercast, when you sign up, you click a link and it has that weird smart thing that knows what kind of phone you're on. It's like, oh, do you want to listen to this on Apple Podcasts? Click here. And I always thought that was kind of cool. So that's why I like Supercast. And I'm sure if you go to supportthishow.com/Supercast, if they have an affiliate program, I probably have a link to that. She says, I have a client, DR says, on the free plan on Red Circle. Yep. No complaints. Their customer service is great, even on the free version. Yeah, I have, I forget what show. I have a show on Red Circle, Blueberry, Buzzsprout, Captivate, and Libsyn. And anything I finally got to the point where I'm like, how many do I need? Like, of those, like, hey, I'm only podcasting twice a month, and it's got to be cheap. I'm like, Libsyn, okay, I need dynamic ads. Okay, Captivate. I need dynamic ads, but I really needs to be like just stupid simple. Okay, Buzzsprout. So it's I want to really embrace podcasting 2.0, and I love WordPress. Okay, Blueberry. So that whole 9 yards. But I'm sitting here gabbing, and I keep saying I'm going to do this, and then I don't. And that is, speaking of communities, I want to say thanks to my awesome supporters, because I feel like I've been talking for I'm just watching Jim just sit there. I'm like,
hey, you're doing fine. You're fine. You're fine.
This show is brought to you by the School of Podcasting. There's courses over there that'll walk you through everything, literally, except Buzzsprout, because they just rebranded. And I was like, yay, I get to redo all my Buzzsprout stuff. There's unlimited coaching and a really kick-butt community. And you can use the coupon code COACH. And when you sign up to save you some money. And by that way, that coupon is for every month after that. That's not just like the first month kind of thing. So this show runs on Podpage. If you want to try Podpage, that's my affiliate link. Go to trypodpage.com. And if you want to learn Podpage, check out learnpodpage.com. And that's some more tutorials I'm going to be making in the future. They're getting ready to change their interface a bit. Right now, we're using Ecamm. And if you want to check it out, just go to askthepodcastcoach.com/Ecamm. And Ecamm has 2 M's at the end of that. And if my button would work, there we go. If you need more Jim Collison, and hey, who doesn't need more Jim Collison? Well, then just go over to theaverageguy.tv, or if you want to be a rebel, you can go to homegadgetgeeks.com. But we have been saying theaverageguy.tv forever, so I'm sticking with that.
Yeah,
and,
both work.
Yeah, there you go.
Both
and it's time for our fun-filled Wheel O' Names. And so, will it be Ralph from Ask Ralph, or there's Glenn? We've got Greg over at Indie Drop-In. We've got all sorts of fun people. Let's spin that wheel. I can't take the suspense. Round and round it goes. We got a super chat. Holy cow, from John Spencer. Thank you, John. And the one and only Ed Sullivan from SonicCupcake.com. So, longtime supporter of the show. And if you need help with your podcast, he's an editor. And he'll make you sound delicious. So, and every time I hear Sonic Cupcake, I get a little hungry. I got to admit it. I'm like, oh, you know what? I haven't had a cupcake in forever. So thank you, Ed, very much for your support. We deeply appreciate that. And hey, if you think about it, does this show save you time or money, or ooh, I didn't know that, and saved you a headache? Does it keep you educated? Well, then you should become an awesome supporter. Just go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. You also get invites to group coaching occasionally and all sorts of fun stuff. And I realized I have an extra slide at the end of this, Jim. You ready for this? This is my favorite. That is a polar bear eating vanilla ice cream in a snowstorm. It's excellent. So, yeah, it is a dad joke, isn't it? Yeah, but John Spencer chiming in with the super chat. So, John, I clicked the button. It's supposed to make it rain when I click that button. It said it did.
It did. A little bit. There was a little bit there. It was fast.
Thank you, John, very much for your super. He says, what is the... Oh, I like that. He's got a question. We should start doing that. Hey, if you want to ask a question, super chat. But he says, what is the best equipment setup for recording while walking? Well, number one, do I have to show you my knees? You don't want to do that, my friend. I'm here to tell you. Should I show him my knees, Jim? Do we want it?
No, let's not. We probably get blocked on. We get blocked on. Too much blood.
Too much skin. Blood. Yeah, it's gross. Yeah. For recording while walking, I would. That's a great question. How easy do you want it? Because you could. I mean, as simple as earbuds. Because here's the thing: you're not going to get great quality because you're walking outside. You know what I mean? My favorite, I used to do this, and I remember a dog. I'm sitting there talking about weight loss, and it's like blah, 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 and calories in, calories out, and this giant dog that you could ride to work came at me, and you just hear me go, yeah, yeah. And my audience loved that. But let me think about this. When you could get great, I mean, there's all sorts of, there's wireless Go from Rode. Jim, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I would go with the Wireless Pro. Yeah. That would be my pick up one of those, make sure the windscreen's on it. You can either hold it or you could attach it to yourself. You're going to get wind. outside. You just know it's going to happen. So not every time, but those I continue to see those wireless pro mics being used on YouTube, and they work. People clip them to their hats, they clip them to their shirts, they hold them, and so that would be my recommendation. But
Yeah,
hands
and
down, it's a good
there's
mic. And
that.
there's a couple knockoffs of that too that may work as well. You might, your mileage might vary, but it seems like Rode's doing that. That's the best I've seen so far.
Yeah, and then Shure has one, the Shure Move mic. That's like $300, and it works with your phone. The other thing that I just found out, we were talking about this, and I just realized I put the wrong link in the chat room. That's the link to the thing I'm talking about. Rode has a microphone, like a, Bob Barker kind of typical SM58 kind of microphone. It is wireless and will go to your phone if you wanted it to, or it will record right into the microphone. And I was like, ooh, that sounds a whole lot easier, and you'll get a little better audio. Jason Bryant from MattTalkOnline.com is going to the Olympics, by the way, again, as an announcer for... Yeah, exactly. And he had one yesterday, and it does tie right into the Rodecaster if you needed that. And I said, wait, do I have to buy the receiver for that? He's like, no, you can just have it go right to your phone. And I was like, ooh, that could be. He goes, or you just have it record into the mic. And I was like, oh, I didn't know it did that. And it's like $280. And I was like, my wallet is getting warm just thinking about that. So there's some good stuff. Yeah, the Rode interview mic, I think is what that's called. Ask Ralph said Bluetooth stinks. It does, but if you're doing a Bob Barker, that's the only bad news about that. I'd have to think about that. How can I monitor that microphone? There's got to be a headphone out, because otherwise you could have a ton of popping peas and not know it because you can't hear it. So,
but Bluetooth's gotten a lot better. Let me just say some of the standards have been picked up a little bit. I'm still not an advocate for using wireless stuff in general for podcasting, whether that be wireless keyboards or wireless mics or wireless headphones, whatever. Some of the early versions of PC had terrible Bluetooth associated with it. And the Bluetooth standard was just never really designed to be a asynchronous in time kind of interface. There's been some standard updates to it. It's gotten a little bit better. Again, still not an advocate for it, but if you were outside using those connected it was one way. This is where it's a little bit different. If you're one way recording to it, it can be a little bit better. In this arena, you definitely get what you pay for. So don't buy the $50 version of these things. You're going to spend $200 to $300 to $500 on it. If you don't want to do that, there are some wired versions of it where you can get the lapel wire to it, or there's some dongles you can get for your iPhone and plug that stuff directly in. If you don't want to do Bluetooth, you can get some support for that. Just be careful on the phones. They don't have enough power to really run really good microphones. So they'll tell you like, hey, this isn't going to work when you plug it into the camera kit is what you would get on the iPhone with Lightning to get it there. So there are some great options now to do this if you want to record outside.
Yeah, this is a powered device, and it's a wireless kit. And the tricky part is for your phone, it's for an iPhone, at least in this case, you have to get one of these converters because the actual mic has your typical, what looks like a headphone jack. And there is no headphone jack on an iPhone, so I had to do these. And I was amazed. And you get two of them for like $40. Now it's wired, and they give you lots and lots of cable, which is kind of a pain in the butt, depending on what you're doing. But for the budget, I was amazed. I was watching somebody do video once, and I'm like, what microphone are you using? And he's like, it's these. They're like $40. I'm like, huh. So that I thought wasn't bad. I did buy their wireless system, and I can't get it to work. I did buy a extender cable because it won't. I have my awesome OtterBox protective case on this, and so when you try to plug it into the bottom, the case is in the way, and I don't feel like taking my phone out of the case. But I cannot thank the OtterBox case well worth the money spent, because when I did take my little tumble, I literally landed on my phone. Like I just smashed it into the concrete and expected it to pick it up and just have it be nothing but, lines through it and everything like that. And the case saved it. So that's cool. But, yeah, John says it's only money. Yeah. The thing about the Wireless Pro, because I used that when I did they weren't the Pro then, it was just the Wireless Go. When I was doing my Akron podcast, I went to some place and it was cool to just clip on these two things, hit record, which records on the device, but I also had it recording on my phone because there's a cool Rode software that comes with it. So, and then Danny says, what's an example of terrible Bluetooth? Stupid Magic Mic from Apple. Yes, it's magic, but it stays connected to your Mac. Yes, I hate my earbuds. Keep connecting to my Mac. And I'm like, no. And that drives me nuts. I know Ralph was playing with a bunch of Bluetooth stuff, and he was trying to do it. He wanted his microphone not to be in the shot, so he had these different tools. And by the time you talk into the mic, over Bluetooth, into whatever he was using, a Rodecaster or whatever, and then back to your earbuds, there was always this weird, just an ever so slight, like Elvis 50s echo, and he just couldn't get rid of it. So that's another thing. So, yeah.
Sometimes that's noise canceling. Listen, they make these things for the average person. So they put all these things in there because they hear people complain, I can't get this to work. It doesn't ever do. And then for us techie people, we're trying to connect them to 5 or 6 different devices at a time. I have this Bluetooth speaker that I take out on the deck when we're out there, and it's connected to my phone and the Mac and the TV. I've got all those connections. Man, when I turn that thing on, it doesn't know what to do. It's like, too many things. So you do have to manage. This is what a lot of people don't realize. Bluetooth, you have to manage it. You have to make sure, you ever turn your phone on? I do this all the time. Look at all the Bluetooth things that your phone is connected to, right? I bet I have 15 or 20 in there that I've connected to at some point, not right now, but at some point. So you definitely with Bluetooth now, you definitely have to manage it. And again, it's terrible in an asynchronous where you're trying to get stuff back and forth. It's got delays built into it. I mean, it's going to space, for God's sake. So just be gentle with Bluetooth. There are some applications though where it can work wirelessly for you very, very, and for God's sakes, don't use Wi-Fi for some of that stuff. That's even worse. There's a whole bunch of new Wi-Fi enabled things. Don't. Wi-Fi was not made for that. So don't even the 6 and 6E stuff that we have coming. Like don't take your devices that you use. It's good for like Internet of Things and some of that kind of stuff that you're using. But man, don't use Wi-Fi for that kind of stuff for sure. Yeah.
Ralph says, I ended up going back to my Rode Pod mic. I don't even worry about the monitoring anymore. I do have the Shure mics. And he says, and they're fine, but they just don't sound as good. Yeah, a lavalier mic is never going to sound as good as a it's not going to have the warmth in most cases.
Yep. High mids, pretty flat. You're going to get, outside, you won't get any echo, but then you're dealing with outside noises, dogs barking, sirens, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Todd the Gator says, what was the Power to Wise power supply again? It wasn't a power supply. It's just it's 2 microphones that tie in to, it's 2 little lav mics. And then I think there's even a splitter. So you can plug it in to, yes. I mean, it's just cables plenty here. And yeah, and they have an extension cable. So if you didn't have enough cable already, here's more. But you got the little microphone with a little clippy-do on it, little, windscreen. And then here's the other one. And then the thing is, the end of it is like it's like made for an old iPhone, I don't know, 12, something like that. So you have to get one of these. And you have to make sure this is, if I remember right, let me look at it. Yes, it's TRRS, because 1 R wasn't enough. And then you plug that into that, and then this goes into your phone, and it works. But I had it's on my kitchen table. I'd run and get it, but, we're doing a live show. But I want to do that. And I got some sort of extension cord to plug into my phone so that, in theory, because it's just this little bar that plugs into the bottom, and it's supposed to pair with your stuff. And I did try it. I took my phone out of the case, and it still wasn't working. So I was like, well, and it was cheap. It was like, I don't know, $20 for a wireless system or something. And I'm like, well, like Jim said earlier, you kind of get what you pay for. But I thought if their wireless mics sound as good as that, that would be, easier to do it. And it's funny because I always go that way if I want to record at events. And then it dawned on me, Dave, you never record at events. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I don't. Usually because the last thing I want to do is like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Guest, we've all come here to network. Let me steal you away into a room so that neither of us is networking. And I'm like, what you should be doing is making those connections. So you're like, hey, when we get home, I need to have you come on the show. But it's always nice to have that option so that if somebody wants to do a quick, I used to do the last 5 and 5. I'd go around and ask people, which I haven't done in a long time. So if somebody wants to send in a last 5 and 5, what were the last 5 podcasts you listened to? Not so much your favorite 5, but what were the last 5 podcasts you listened to, and tell me a little bit about them. And don't forget to plug your website. Go to, schoolofpodcasting.com/question. That's something we used to do, and it just kind of fizzled out. So let's see what else is going on in the chat room here. It's so fun when Danny says that's the beauty of microphones. Each voice responds differently. Yeah. The pod mic I found harsh because of its emphasis on mids. The thing I like about it, and you can do this on the Shure MV7, it has software that goes into the microphone so you can tweak it so you can get it the way you like it. Really, this is a Rodecaster single channel microphone because it's got the big bottom. It's got all the fun bells and whistles, the effects of that. And then it saves them into the microphone. So if you're plugged it in, I don't know, because I'm using it XLR, but I know if you plug it in via USB, those effects come into play. So you can actually take out the harshness and all that other fun stuff. So that's always fun. Jim, have you ever thought of getting another microphone? You've been using the ATR 21. You seem to be the one guy that doesn't have gear acquisition syndrome.
Yeah, not on the microphone side. I every time I go to buy one, I think, well, I podcast as the average guy. And is that, if all of a sudden I have a $400 microphone in my studio, is that the average guy? I keep waiting for this thing to break. I think I've had it a decade, maybe.
Yeah.
I drop it from time to time, like, oops.
Doggone it.
Oh, It didn't break again. Yeah, no, it just keeps working. And it's one of those, and I don't know. I just haven't had the desire to switch microphones to have a better one. So works out. I use these at work too. We were just talking about backup mics, and I realized during the pandemic, I brought one home and it sat right behind me, and I had a bowl there, and I just put it in the bowl, and I said it sat there for a couple years, and then I took it back to work. And I have a couple mics at work as a backup, but I don't have a backup mic here. So maybe I need to grab one of those and bring it here just in case. Just now that we talked about it, maybe it'll happen. But I've used this mic for a long time. It suits my voice. People know it as my voice now.
Yeah.
If I changed it, they'd be like, "Oh, you sound too whatever there."
Yeah. It's too bassy. It's harsh.
Yeah.
It's a little harsh.
Listen, Randy Black knows me well. He says I have a monitor problem, not a podcasting gear, which I consider my monitors as part of podcasting. But yes, I do enjoy my monitors and my setup down here that 4 different PCs going with.
You're putting them on outdoor grilling products.
I
and cigars.
do. Yeah, I do, and a little whiskey. Those are there. There we go. There we go. You guys know me. You know me. You guys know me. So, and enjoy all those things. So
there we go. Well, as I look at the clock, I was like, it's about that time. So,
oh yeah,
Jim, what's coming up on Home Gadget Geeks?
Well, Thursday was the 4th of July, and so we didn't podcast. Always nice to take a week off, but we have some good podcasts. If you need something to listen to, like we always say with Dan Lefebvre's podcast, if you need something else to listen to, Home Gadget Geeks is always there for you. Just check it out, homegadgetgeeks.com.
And I don't know if Dan could do it. I'm watching the playlist on Netflix, which is the birth of Spotify. And as a musician, I want to reach through the screen and punch people in the face because they really have absolutely no respect for artists at all. And it just shows. And I'm kind of like, yeah, but how much of this is true? And I don't know how he would find a guest. He'd have to find a guest that was in Spotify to figure that out. But that's if you want to kind of get where Spotify's coming from. They're all about, hey, I know it's your stuff and you worked hard for it. It's your art, but like we just want to give it away for free, and we're gonna do it. You can't stop us. Too bad. So it's an interesting documentary if you need something to watch. And it's, I think, originally in whatever Swedish people speak, Swede something, and is dubbed in English. So if you're looking at it going, wait, did I eat too many gummies? Like, why is the mouth not in? Like, no, it's the way it is. So on the School of Podcasting, I think I'm going to do something I've never done. And that is, there's a new show coming out, new to us, called Podcast Hot Seat. And the first episode is now available. And I think I'm going to throw that down the School of Podcasting with a little opening of it. Like, hey, this could have been you, to go back to Ray's point and put that in there. Because it is the 4th and my knees hurt. And I need to take it easy this weekend. And yeah, so I think that's what's going to do that on the School of Podcasting. We'll be here next week. Jim will be on special assignment, but I'll be here. And you'll have to tune in next week to figure out who I got to be the guest co-host. So we'll see you next week.